Hello everyone, I'm Samidha Varvekar. Today's our session will be on Linux forensics. This session provides an overview of digital forensics for Linux system. So in this session we will see what is Linux forensics, a short overview of Linux operating system, Linux artifact and their forensic value, and lastly difference in forensic process between Linux and Windows operating system. So we'll start with introduction. Linux forensics is the process of using investigative techniques to collect, analyze, and report evidence from a Linux system. So, it is a process of identifying and gathering the evidence from a computer that runs Linux operating system. Linux forensics is a complex process, and there are many tools and techniques that can be used to collect and analyze the evidence. So, there are numerous tools available for conducting the Linux forensics process. So the most important thing is to have an understanding of the Linux operating system and how it works. So we'll see what is Linux operating system. Operating system that uses the Linux kernel are referred to as Linux based computers. So what is meant by kernel? So basically kernel is the bridge between the hardware and software which is used for interaction between the hardware and software. So it performs two tasks, means to interact with the hardware and also to instruct the other software components about how to interact with the hardware. So like if you want to turn on the Wi-Fi option on the computer, so you'll basically do this by clicking the menu option and then turn off the Wi-Fi. But internally, the kernel instructs the hardware module to power up and start working. So this is how the kernel works. And in this case, the operating system which uses Linux kernel are known as Linux-based computers. The kernel always works with other operating system components to handle the file management, memory management, and process management. So next we'll see some Linux-based operating systems. Using Linux kernel, different operating systems have been developed, like Ubuntu and Kali. These are Debian-based, while Fedora is Red Hat-based Linux operating system. These are also known as Linux distribution or distros. So the next point is directory structure of Linux. To be able to perform Linux forensics, it is important to know about the layout of the files on Linux system. So as we know on Windows, the main drive is C drive, which is further divided into different files and folders. So like that on Linux, the main directory is referred as root directory. And as like on Windows, within the C drive, there are different folders like program files, users. So like that, Linux also have some folders which are listed below. So the bin folder, this contains the binaries for the user application. OPT folder, this is reserved for installation of application software packages. DEV folder, this folder has configuration for devices attached to the computer. var folder, this folder is the main store for various logs generated by the application and the event system. Next is home. So like on Windows, for every user, a directory is found within the users folder in C drive. So like that, in same way, in Linux, the directory for the user is within this home folder. Next is etc. This folder contains the configuration file for the services and application. So the picture here shows the Linux directory structure, and these are the different folders within the main root folder. So next we'll see artifacts. So as we have seen in our previous session on Windows forensics, The record of every activity performed on Windows computer is saved within the prefetch file, shellbacks, event logs, and the registry. So in the same way, whenever any Linux operating system is used, the records of user activity are stored in different locations, that is artifacts. So we will learn different Linux artifacts and their forensic value one by one. So the first artifact is log. Every Linux system generates numerous logs by default. The main log stored in Linux system is within the var folder and it is saved in different directories based on its type, like system logs in syslog, authentication logs in authlog, then the package manager logs in the dpkg log, service logs in access log, and also application logs. So the system log contains logs related to the system activity. Authentication log contains the logs related to user logins. Package manager, it contains the logs related to additional software which are installed on the system. Service log, services like Apache and FTP are installed on the system, so their logs are stored in service logs. And multiple applications are used on the system, so these logs are stored in application log. In terms of forensic, these logs helps to reconstruct the user actions, to track the system activity, and to identify the security breaches. So the next artifact is user account and information. So user account and information is stored in etc passwd and etc shadow files directory. So this file contains the information about the user accounts such as username, password. Password here are stored in hash format. Next, home directories, account status, and password expiration dates. In terms of forensics, it helps to identify the users who are active on the system, their privileges means their roles, compromised accounts, and also unauthorized access attempts. So the next artifact is system information. This artifact is located in the etc directory and it contains the details about the system like operating system, host name, kernel version, and the software installed on the system. In terms of forensic, it is helpful in identifying the type of the system and its capabilities. Next is file system metadata. It is stored in the file system structures and it contains the information regarding the partitions, file type, files, directories, including the MAZ values, means modification, access, creation time, the permissions, and size. So it helps to reconstruct the file activities, identifying deleted or hidden files, determine the ownership, and establish the timeline of the event. Next is shell history. Shell history is stored in the bash history file in the home directory. It contains the record of the commands which are executed in the shell and it is useful in identifying the user activity and determining sequence of events leading to security incidents. Next is configuration files. Configuration files are stored in various locations. The main folder is etc. Within that, these files are stored in different directories. Like passwd, it stores the user account information and the host directory stores the network hostname resolution. This file contains configuration information for the application and the operating system. This artifact can be useful in identifying the system configuration, application behavior means how the application interacts with the system. Files may be modified by the users. So It is helpful to identify the evidence of modification. Next artifact is network information. Network information, including the network connection, IP addresses, DNS settings, firewall settings, and routing tables, can be found in the files like within the etc folder in different directories, that is network interface, configuration, netstat, and all. In terms of forensic, it is helpful in identifying the network activity, connection to the external system, data transfer means determining the source and destination of network traffic. So the next artifact is temporary files. Temporary files are stored in various locations such as in TMP folder and also in the var and TMP directory. These files are created by the application and the system, and it may contain sensitive information or the remains of deleted data. This file reveals recent activities, file usage, and any evidence of malicious activity. Next is process information. It includes running processes, process IDs, parent-child process relations, and memory usage. In terms of forensic, it reveals the running process and identify malicious process and also tracks the program execution. And we can view the process information by using the ps command. So the next artifact is executable files. These files are located in the bin folder and it contains binaries, scripts or programs that are executed on the system. And analyzing these files can be helpful in revealing installed software, malicious code, and the evidence of unauthorized events. So the last point is difference in forensic processes between Linux and Windows operating system. So mainly Linux supports extended file system while Windows supports NTFS and FAT32 file system. In Linux, the user account information is stored in etc passwd and shadow files, while in Windows, the user accounts are managed in SAM database, that is Security Account Manager database. In Linux, system logs are located in var folder in log directory, while Windows event logs are stored on C drive in log file. Linux doesn't have a registry system. Here the configuration settings are stored in files, while Windows uses centralized registry and it contains hives. In Linux, the system information is found in files like etc hostname and through the command unim-a. In Windows, system information is available in control panel. Security logs in Linux are stored in secure directory within the var folder, while in Windows, the security logs are stored in C drive within Windows and System32 folder. Linux doesn't have a recycle bin. Deleted files are recovered by examining the inode information, while in Windows, deleted files can be recovered from the recycle bin. So lastly, the most important difference in forensic process between the Linux and Windows operating system is that in terms of Windows, some specific tools are required for analyzing the artifacts. As we have seen this in our previous session of Windows forensics, but in Linux, you can weave those artifacts simply in the text editor. So next, we'll see the file system structure in the Linux and also how to weave the logs in the text editor. So now we'll see the Linux file system. So this is how the Linux file system looks like. We have seen in the PPT, these are the different folders within the file system. That is bin folder, boot folder, dev, etc, home, and so on. So This is the var folder which stores the logs. So here the logs are stored based on its type. Like Apache, it is a service based log which stores the service logs, as Apache is a web server. So here the logs are stored. And as I have said, the main difference between the Windows and Linux forensic process is that in terms of Windows, we require some specialized tools for viewing and analyzing the artifacts. But in terms of Linux, we can view the artifacts in the text editor. So this is the text editor, and this is how we can view these logs. So this is the main difference between the Windows and Linux forensic process. So these are the different folders which we have seen in the PPT and also in terms of the artifacts. So this was all about Linux forensics. So far we have learned what is Linux forensics, basics about Linux operating system, different artifacts and their forensic value, and difference in process between the Linux and Windows operating system. So all these points are crucial from digital forensics perspective. So that's all for today. Thank you for watching.